I'm talking today about trophies, accolades, financial reward, and anxiety. Sounds like a stew, doesn't it? I know for me it sounds like a stew. So you're successful, but wouldn't it be great to feel that way? Having a fear of losing your achievements and your hard-earned success can keep you awake at night, right? Waking up 2 a.m, midnight, whatever it happens to be, feeling desperate and obsessing about future planning while asking the question, what if this all goes away? What if I lose everything? Learn how insecure attachment determines your career path when it comes to what motivates you. It is a major influencer in your decisions and where self-doubt stems from. It exerts a surprising pain point on your success when you're extrinsically motivated because you believe something is missing inside of you. Then the value you receive in return from your accomplishment always feels incomplete, or it feels like something's missing. Insecure attachment creates the need for external validation each and every time. Today, you're going to want to stay tuned. I'm Tracy Crossley. I'm an author, podcast host, and the game changer for female leaders. Welcome to my YouTube channel, where female leaders like you get valuable insight every week, so be sure to subscribe. Our topic today is how extrinsic motivation stems from insecure attachment and how to instead become confident, happy, and successful through intrinsic motivation. Attachment theory was originated by John Bowlby. It has been expanded upon in a myriad of ways, and after working with people, myself, for the last 15 years, I can tell you it affects all parts of your life, all parts. Insecure attachment and motivation. The attachment theory originated about what the impact of relationships was when it was the child and the caregiver. So your original relationship. It sets the pace for your conditioning, which carried you forth to adulthood, because a lot of this was unconscious. You were not consciously aware of what was happening and how you determined how you would, let's say, attach to your caregiver and attach in other relationships by how you see yourself and what is possible. Oh, I get attention if I'm an overachiever. I don't get attention if I'm not an overachiever. Many driven and overperforming women fall into the areas of insecure attachment. Keep in mind, anything that drives you externally will be coming from an insecure place. To be secure, the motivation has to be intrinsic. Sorry, almost said the wrong one there. Intrinsic. When it comes to attachment styles, there are a myriad. Literally every time somebody comes out with a new book or a new theory about attachment theory, the attachment styles seem to expand. So, from the spectrum of anxious to avoidant, you don't have to know what one you are, but you will by understanding the characteristics attached to each. So, they all say that you don't have value inside of you. Insecure attachment means all your value comes from your wins, your accomplishments, your degrees, even who you marry. That is how you judge yourself, and it is all external. So your choices are what you believe others will value about you without considering if you value it intrinsically. Your choices are to feed the emptiness, to feed the lack of confidence because you breathe. We mistakenly assign these accomplishments and talents as a sign of confidence, but when they're influenced by outside factors, it means your confidence depends on it. Why should your confidence depend on anything outside of you? Why is your confidence based on what you can or can't do? Your confidence literally needs to be because you breathe. So to heal the style of attachment means you will become intrinsically motivated because you will value what you are inside and not suffer from things like imposter syndrome. The self-determination theory, by the way, is a theory of motivation, and it explains the difference between the two types of motivation, intrinsic, extrinsic. And when you derive your motivation as something to be accepted by others, it really speaks to insecure attachment. So why is this an issue, and what does it show? The fact that you like everyone on the planet were physically there for your conditioning as a child. Yes, you were physically present for the conditioning as a child for the things you learned. but you might not have been aware of the mental and emotional buy-in at the time. Most of us were not. And that means you weren't born this way. You are not innately your attachment style. So if you remain resistant to looking at your conditioning, you're always going to feel incomplete or empty when successful unless someone is validating what is happening. Oh my gosh, you won the trophy. Oh my gosh, you won the client. Oh my gosh, your team is a winning team, right? All of this kind of things, and yet you won't feel anything inside. You might feel like you got to go out and perform again. You might feel like you're going to lose those accolades. And these things are all about the extrinsic. So you're born with a personality. It's why siblings will respond to the same stimuli differently. And that may determine how you see yourself inside the same circumstances with a different perspective. It shows how perspective is the issue, and it is born from what you believe. My caregiver answers my needs, or maybe sometimes, or does, but they're angry about it, and so on. And I determine my value based on these interactions. When I'm good, I'm worthy. When I'm bad, I'm worthless. And you bring this unconsciously forth to adulthood, because these are basically unconscious beliefs you have about yourself until you start to have self-awareness and start to examine this. Many people are just bigger 5-year-olds. Really. Emotional maturity is emotional intelligence, and it makes you a better leader. You may want to be unlimited, meaning you do not need your brain on fear to have you play small. You may want to feel a sense of value without anyone telling you that you matter. You may want to feel your success as a result of the journey that you're on, because your motivation is in the doing of the things, okay, through a sense of autonomy, competence, and connectedness. Those matter, and when your results feel that they are not assuring you that you're okay, but you know you're okay without them, that is the ultimate in confidence and self-empowerment. When your circumstances do not dictate if you have value or not. You can only hit pinnacles for so long before fear creeps in, wondering when you will lose everything. And it's basically irrational, right? But insecure attachment makes you feel like, oh no, it's rational. It could really happen. I spent a great deal of time in my younger years trying to prove it out. I would be super successful and then trying to self-sabotage it at the same time. Not being aware of this, of course. It's a way of seeing yourself, though, through a one-dimensional lens, as though only this is possible. I can't get past here. So as long as any part of you sees yourself this way, you're always going to make up for what you believe you lack, which you really don't lack. It's an illusion, but you believe you lack it. How did we get here? Well, I feel like I beat people over the head with this one. Childhood conditioning, parents with no self-awareness, and you perpetuating what was said or done to you as a child. I've basically said this throughout every podcast, every YouTube channel, clip, anywhere, interviews. I'm always talking about conditioning. So, parents with no self-awareness, that would be my parents. They had no clue. They had no clue because who would have taught them to have a clue? And then what you perpetuate, as I said, what was said or done as a child really does set the stage over and over and over again because of the patterns that you have and the beliefs that the patterns are supporting. So whatever you confirmed about yourself is true when you were a kid, and how the world works is the degree of how motivated you are to come from true creativity, fundamental happiness, and expansion. You will stumble when you do not win the prize or get the accolades. You will have anxiety when it comes to possible loss. You will in fact personalize activities of others in the workplace with an insecure attachment style. Your ability to see things differently may have been an intellectual pursuit through a self-help book or therapy, but beyond that, you will keep feeling the same and wondering why you think you've changed, but the results don't feel any better. Being aware of your motivation and the supporting beliefs and patterns takes a lot of self-awareness. So you may be just starting out, okay? Like a lot of us have some self-awareness, we do. But 24/7 self-awareness is very difficult to achieve. So you might be just starting out with it. But the point is, you got here by not paying attention to the knowledge you were born with. Most of us don't pay attention to the innate knowledge we have. We don't pay attention to our inner wisdom, to our intuition. And instead, we're distracted by what other people think, who have maybe not the healthiest emotionally to say to you, right? Like throughout your life, a lot of us will take that negative feedback in and we will try to outsmart it, outperform it, whatever, instead of dismissing it, which is what we should do. So what's at stake? Until there's awareness on your part, you're going to keep repeating these same mistakes. Like I said, same patterns over and over, same choices. And if you choose differently, you'll be choosing from fear and lack of trust still. It doesn't matter. Okay, I'm going to do this instead. But really, to make choices means that a lot of leadership choices come from seeing a problem that may not actually be a problem, but creating a problem by reacting to it. A lot of times as a leader, it's to observe, right? It's to be patient. But when you fear loss, you will tend to keep making fear-based decisions. It's your one and only life as a leader, and you've got to choose, how am I going to lead? At a cost to you, or one in which your intrinsic value increases. When you won't stand up and say, okay, I'm admitting some truths to myself that are obstacles to my well-being and my true mettle as a leader, then I risk everything I've won in a way that is passive and it's painful. Remaining an avoidant, as an example, will have you avoiding tough conversations. It will have you dismissing value in others. It will have you making choices that are meant to keep strife away from you and therefore create drama elsewhere. Or, as someone who vacillates between being anxious or avoidant, all the things I said apply, and add on the anxiety you have over the fear of losing everything when you fear others find out about you, and that your extrinsic motivation to keep everyone happy so they love you is failing. And I mean, so everybody's a fan, right? So you do not see how painful it is to be you, needing so much from others, and when you don't get it, you create a situation unconsciously to get the validation. By talking about attachment styles, more than this will lead to be probably for me a several part series, because I am just going to leave you with a couple of short examples with the tips I'm going to give. And I just feel that there's so much more that I want to share. So be prepared. This will probably be a series. Okay, how we're going to move forward. Let's talk about becoming more self-aware and more confident because you breathe, literally because you're alive. Moving forward is about increasing your value, not through accomplishments, but in getting to know what. Here's the tips. And now you're going to know. Getting to know what, right? Number one, which is my second best tip. As you guys know, I do this. Knowing your why. You think you know your why based on your environment, but really, what really motivates you? Do you know? Is it fear or peace? Stable emotions? What is your motivator? So many of us really don't know. We may list a bunch of things outside of us, but truly, we don't really know from the inside why we do half the things that we do. So I have an example. Client Cindy. She was a client of mine for a few years. She felt she ran her business in a way that inspired people. She thought her younger proteges wanted to be there. They always thanked her and told her she was an amazing force of getting it done. But she had the wrong perception. She was actually disconnected from her employees. She knew next to nothing about any of them and what made them tick or what their goals were. And when we started working together, I asked her, what is your why? Why do you want to own a business? Why do you help who you do? What do you get from this? Why, right? And why in capital letters, by the way, ladies, and so on. So she reacted with, to make enough revenue, right? To keep the company afloat. She could not get to her deeper why. She didn't know. She said she chose this career because she did not want to be poor like her parents. She never took the time to figure anything out. She just didn't want to be like them. So everything was a reaction to not wanting to be like them rather than, well, what do you really want to do with your life, right? So Cindy did the work with me and her whole business changed. And so did the clients she works with now. She wanted a better level of clients rather than always feeling people chose her firm as a last result. She gets excited about leading and being innovative now. And she was always, by the way, innovative in her mind, but to be putting it out there and be innovative with her actions was so different. She didn't trust herself, right? She had a lot of doubts about her own ideas. Her revenue increased exponentially and her client base tripled in the time that we worked together because it changed that much. Getting to know her why was huge. Okay, third best tip. Check your current work environment. This is not about blaming the environment extrinsically. It is to show you it's a reflection of your mind. Your perception is a reflection of your mind. There are how many billions of people on this planet? That's how many different perceptions there are, right? Literally, that's a perception, okay? So, you have a perception of your environment. Here's another client of mine. Maxine was a go-getter before you could say go. She was already at the finish line. Her claim to fame was to revive dead business. She led sales teams all over the world. Yep, she was a global leader. And now as a leader for sales at a smaller company in an unfamiliar industry, she was being challenged with not just lagging sales, but people who had no heart in it. Maxine tried all her usual tactics, but found it was like hitting a wall. The people remained unmotivated, and she found herself feeling less than inspired. Her usual drive was replaced by depression. She felt she was giving up, and she felt the quest was out of her league. Maybe she should have gone into a field she had more experience in. Well, that's not necessarily true, but it was just all of this lack of confidence, right? So we started working together, and I basically had her check into her environment, not to judge everybody in the environment, but to see how it reflected back to her how she felt about herself. Maxine at first was super taken aback. She couldn't even believe it. She thought she valued herself, but what she really valued was being a winner. Even though she never felt like a winner, she thought someone would come along and take it from her. She was always afraid of somebody stealing from her. So she started paying attention to this attitude prevailing around her, and then she would look at herself and see how she brought despair into a situation she felt loss in, even if there wasn't loss. She was already feeling a loss, like preemptively feeling loss. She started working with herself and working with me in developing intrinsic motivation. What got her out of bed, and what were the obstacles inside of her keeping her stuck? She realized her avoidance style, coupled with extrinsic motivation, meant nothing really had any meaning to her. She realized she was numb almost all the time, and how could she inspire herself or anyone else when she basically was a machine? That's what she came to. She worked on her style, her motivation, and started to understand what her why was. She started understanding that on a bigger level and how she needed to change it. It wasn't healthy or happy. It was a why based on fear. That's why she needed to change it. And let me tell you, Maxine bought the damn company. Yeah, she turned that department around. She had to let people go at the time, but she was able to design a business that worked in an industry that she actually came to love. So she thought, I'm going to buy this business. And she did. All right, so I'm saving that best tip for last. Ready? Do not let your circumstances or anything external, including the perspective developed from your attachment style, rule you. Yeah, you get to be the leader inside and out when you start defining what it is you are doing toward the goal you want because it's meaningful to you. So another client of mine, Laura was a worn-out C-level executive. She cried herself to sleep every night. Her style was to get everyone on her team to agree with her. And if she couldn't, then she felt depressed, literally depressed. And she would then defer to someone else on the team for the answer, and then want to feel accolades for pointing out the other person's brilliance, okay? Nothing wrong with including others, but when you need some validation from it, you are looking for pain. You are not intrinsically tied to what you're doing. I started working with Laura as her area of business was sagging, lagging, and basically needed to be resuscitated. She could not seem to get a win, and it was becoming a problem. She was worn out, she was trying to please everyone, and felt anxious every day. At work, thinking of work, her only motivation was to get people to take her seriously and to give her the high fives she felt mattered. She needed that so badly, okay? She was a hard worker as she looked for the accolades from me in the form of grading her every time we met. She's not the only one, by the way, folks. Like, I get a lot of overachievers that are looking for some kind of system that I'm grading them. Oh, good, you got an A+ today. Yeah, that doesn't really help anything. But anyway, all of her circumstances, both personally and professionally, were defined by achievement and only achievement. Nothing else was a definition. You're not achieving, you're a loser. You're achieving, you're a winner. That was it for her. To work with her attachment style and how circumstances were dictating her mood and choices constantly meant she had no real sense of self. That is what we worked on, her sense of self, her sense of feeling separate, from the circumstances she was in instead of being codependent with the circumstances, which a lot of us are. We just make decisions based on circumstances because we're afraid the circumstances are changing out of our favor. And therefore, we are dependent on them being something different when in actuality, we're not even really looking at how they got there. We may analyze it, but we don't see our own part of it. Anyways, she realized she did not believe in herself unless others did. This was a long road, but getting Laura to feel defined by her own inner knowledge, by her wants and desires that were intrinsic in autonomy, competence, and connection. She felt a weight lifted off her shoulders and a new energy as she got her act together. Her area of business started to thrive. It was watching the creative energy that started with her and motivated others, not through people pleasing, but through her own intrinsic motivation. Yeah, that's how it happened. So tell me what you think. Have you ever struggled with that? Love to know. I would love to know. What does this mean for female leaders? You matter. You matter with or without the accomplishments. How much better would it feel to believe it and then see it in action, right? To be a successful version of yourself inside and out. That would be amazing. What's the next step? Well, you can try these tips out and report back to me what changed. And if you have an interest in working with me because you see yourself in any of these examples, or you want to know more about attachment and how it affects motivation, please email business@tracycrossley.com. And please check out my other videos to get a leg up on your power and influence as a female leader. Just click on the video you see on your screen now. Take care.